Hey, what's up guys, my name is Cherno. Welcome to the third Sparky devlog. So, we're going to be talking about a lot of stuff today because I haven't done a devlog for the past 2 weeks for various circumstances, but rest assured I have been hard at work and I've done quite a lot and I'm still working on quite a lot. So basically this devlog is going to be something that is going to be showing stuff that is very much in progress, stuff that isn't done yet, stuff that probably doesn't look right, or perform correctly, or the APIs all over the place, all of that kind of stuff. Like, this is code that is kind of dodgy right now, and it's very much in progress. But of course, the devlog did come up. I tried to kind of clean stuff up before this devlog, but I didn't want to miss another devlog. So you guys are going to be seeing this stuff as it is. And it should be pretty cool. So first things first, if you actually go to the GitHub repository and you look at the commits, it'll appear that I haven't actually committed anything in a really long time. In fact, 20 days ago was the last time I committed something. And I don't remember if I mentioned this stuff in the last devlog, but it was basically lighting things. And I've done a lot since then. Now, what I've done is the major features that I started, in fact, you can all see this on the Sparky Trello board, was forward rendering. I was kind of working a lot on that, and also physically based rendering, okay? Now, those are 2 pretty giant tasks, and essentially, I usually use multiple computers when developing things. For example, I use my laptop when I'm not at home, and I use my desktop when I am at home, and I kind of like pushing stuff all the time, but I don't want to push broken code to GitHub because it's just not, like, I don't really want to do that. I kind of, because Sparky is a public project, I pretty much just want to keep, like, these commits here nice and clean to an extent, right? Stuff that isn't finished yet but does work, or at least doesn't break the API or the engine, or even compiles, right? That kind of stuff I'll happily push here, but stuff that I'm working on comprehensively, and I just don't want to, I don't want it to break stuff, I don't commit here. Now, you might be crazy. You might be like, well, does that mean you're not using a version control system? I am. I'm actually using a different version control system. I'm using a version control system called Versioner, okay? And Versioner, has to be pronounced that way, by the way, is a pretty cool open source version control system here. It's written in C#. It's actually written by someone you might recognize, EatPlayHate from the Slack. If you guys are on my Slack, which you can get there by going to, like, there'll be a link in the description, but it's going to be like slack.thecherno.com, and you can sign up there. Basically, Slack is like a team communication thing. He hangs out there pretty often, so you guys can catch him on there. But anyway, EatPlayHate wrote this version control system called Versioner, and it's just really good. It's just really straightforward, and it's pretty complete, actually. And I just didn't want to use another instance of Git or anything like that to kind of version control that stuff. So it's like, it even does server stuff. Like, it's actually pretty awesome. And it works a lot better than Git, actually. But the idea is I am kind of version controlling all that stuff. So if you guys were to look on here, for example, there's like the versioner copy of Sparky. Like, if I just show my log concisely here, you can see kind of the stuff that I've been working on, right? And in fact, they've even got the dates here, right? So I've done stuff like I've implemented the Disney and GGX diffuse and specular BRDF models, respectively. I've done stuff like shadow mapping and debug menu stuff, and I'll show you guys all these features in the engine in just a second. I just wanted to kind of show you the real kind of commit log of stuff that I've done since the last devlog. I've done, like, I even started deferred rendering. It's been a lot of stuff has gone in here. A lot of PBR stuff. I started IBL, so image-based lighting, and I fixed a bunch of pretty serious engine bugs as well. So that's kind of what I've been working on, and I'm going to go through it now. But if you guys, feel free to check out Versioner. It's pretty cool, pretty easy to use, and I quite like it, more so than Git, in fact. Okay, cool. So let's take a look at the engine, and let's take a look at what I've done. So if I just launch it right now, by not opening properties, then you will see this, okay? Now this looks kind of terrible in a way. The only thing that's terrible about this really are the shadows, because they are noise city right now. Look at how noisy those shadows are. But anyway, I'm not really focusing on the shadows. I just kind of slapped them in there in about an hour or 2, I think, just to get stuff looking kind of all right, and mainly just so I could tell how high objects were off the floor. But the main thing I've been working on was physically based rendering. So you can see, for example, it's actually a bit difficult to see here because these are all white, but you can kind of see a bunch of spheres here with varying roughnesses, okay? So this sphere, for example, you can see the specular highlight is kind of softer and more spread out because this surface is rougher than something like, say, this, which is a very kind of tight, rough surface, and thus the specular highlight is like that. And if we were to look at this crate, kind of this terrible crate texture we've got on the floor, and I bring up the debug menu and I adjust the roughness on that, you can kind of see how the roughness of the material affects you know, the specular highlight. Now this all looks very kind of dark and dull right now, and of course this, like, the roughness, the smoothness of these spheres is almost, it's not really been shown to its full potential because there is no image-based lighting, right? Because obviously in the real world, and in fact in this, once I get around to actually finishing it, what you would see here is this would actually reflect its environment, right? The smoother an object is, the more it reflects, right? And even at grazing angles, you would see like the Fresnel, and you would see the reflection of the environment. And of course, there is no such thing as the environment right now. Well, there kind of is, but I'll get onto that in a minute. But there's no such thing as that just yet, because I haven't, like, my shader right now does not do any kind of image-based lighting things, right? So it's kind of not there yet. It will be though. Hopefully this week, I'll put it in there. One thing I added to the debug menu as well, and I know you can see this text overflow and it looks terrible, but anyway, one of the things that I added to this debug menu is the ability to not just adjust single values like this roughness, but you can just give it a vector, and you can see you get 3 things. So if I want to, for example, change the cube's position, you can see that I can just move like these respective sliders around and it will adjust the X, Y, and Z position, right? And the same way with, for example, the light position. So if I move the light around, so this is just a dynamic point light. By the way, the shadows are actually coming from a completely different, unrelated directional light, because I haven't done point light shadows yet because they're pretty hard to do. But you can see how that light kind of moves around, and the roughness on the cube is actually a little bit different than the roughness on than this roughness. I think the cube has its own, yeah, you can see that as I move that, the cube doesn't change because the cube has its own roughness. But anyway, you can kind of see how that works. So it's pretty cool. You can chuck in like a Vec 2, a Vec 3, or a Vec 4 into the debug menu and just adjust it just like that. It's really, really easy to do. You can see how that kind of gets close to the point light. But yeah, the shadow mapping that I implemented was kind of all right. The 2 things I have to do is obviously like soft shadows and clean up this terrible noise that I'm getting from all the randomization that I'm doing with the samples. But also like shadow cascades and all of that stuff needs to be done. So the shadows were really not the focus. Again, the shadows was just me being like, you know what, this scene would look a lot better if I spent an hour putting shadows in, and I just slapped them in there and they're in there, right? So don't focus too much on the shadows. I know they look pretty terrible. They work, which is nice, but yeah, again, they don't look that great. So yeah, okay. So let's also talk about the other stuff that I've added. So yeah, I've gone over PBR basically. I've gone over the debug menu stuff, and then the other big thing I think that I really added would have been the I added a bit of an FPS camera as well as the Maya camera, so you can kind of do that. In fact, if I pop over to scene and I just change this to be an FPS camera, you can roughly see what I meant by that. So now you can see I can kind of move around as if this was like, you know, an FPS kind of thing. I'm using WASD, and then I can do that. So that's just a different way, and it captures the mouse and everything. That's just a different way to kind of move the camera. So my camera is still, I think, a lot better for moving around and stuff, because it's kind of mimics Maya, and in general, it's just nice for viewing objects and getting up close and personal with some of these things. Oh, let's actually put the plane back on, because I've got like a bit of a, like, I think it's a MiG-17 or a MiG-15, like World War II era fighter in here, because why not? And you can kind of see how, just because that's more or less a real object, and you can see how that looks. Let's see if I can adjust the light position as well. So yeah, I think the roughness on that as well is based on this slider, yeah. So you can kind of see it. Again, it doesn't really make much sense now, because first of all, this plane has 0 textures, and second of all, there is no image-based lighting yet, so there's nothing for it to reflect. There's no environment. Okay, cool. So the other thing I wanted to mention was, so I added, there are a few things that have changed as far as textures go, right? Textures now, there are different types of textures. There's a texture interface, which kind of has just the base kind of interface for textures, right? And you have stuff like, bind, unbind, stuff that all textures have, right? And then you've got 3 implementations of textures, right? 3 different types of textures. You've got a texture 2D, which is kind of your simple kind of traditional 2D texture that you would, render your diffuse channel from. And that's pretty basic. And then you've got your cube texture, which is like a cube map, right? Eventually we'll be able to load that from a single file, but you can also load that from multiple files. That's how it works right now. And of course it generates all of the cubes and the mip maps and all that stuff. Mip maps are actually something I need to add to texture 2Ds as well. And then you have stuff like texture depth, which is just a depth texture, right? And that's used for things like shadow mapping, where you want to just output, like you just want to store the depth of something, right? Which is like just one value, you don't want like RGBA or RGB or anything like that. Okay, cool. So that's how that works. And this is just right now a 16-byte depth. So that's how that cookie crumbles. What was the other thing? Yeah, so to see that in action, if I open my PBR shader, which is right over here, we can do a few things. So if we just set the color to be something like a texture lookup for U environment, which is what I've set that to, we can probably just look at the normals. I think that will kind of be all right. So you can see that sampling from the cube. Actually, that's going to look terrible. Let me just quickly reflect that by the eye. It'll have to be a negative eye as well. All right, so now we kind of have just a normal kind of reflection, right, for sampling it, and you can kind of see how that cube map works with that in mind, right? And it's pretty cool. And then we have, if I really wanted to spice it up, I could kind of show you my IBL thing that is literally half done. So what this will do is it'll figure out the, it will essentially figure out that reflection vector, and then determine a MIP level based on the roughness, right? So basically, it is nowhere near complete right now. It's actually like half implemented, but basically all that means is that you will be able to, like, it'll set the MIP levels. It'll set like how blurry the texture is, pretty much based on how rough the surface is, okay, and obviously reflect it as well. So the rougher the surface, the lower quality texture is going to sample, basically. So that results in, like, it doesn't look the worst, I think, because in this case, can't get that stuff going on. But if I was to increase the roughness or something, you would see that, and this is going to look really weird, but you can see that when I increase the roughness, these clouds, for example, this is probably a good thing to look at. These clouds kind of just get really blurry, and eventually you'll be able to see the seams of the texture cube. And anyway, just a cool little thing that is kind of half implemented right now, but you can see how that works. So anyway, that's pretty much it. I'm going to wrap up this devlog right here because I don't have too much else to say. You guys should definitely hang out on the Trello thing. I added 2 new things, which was FPS camera, or 3 new things, FPS camera, and then GLFW. I'm going to bring back GLFW for OpenGL, right? Because I'm going to have to use GLFW anyway for web. So we might as well not have a specific Windows. I'm still not sure if I want to keep that code, but I definitely don't want to do platform specific, like windowing code for Mac and Linux, because I really don't care too much about those platforms, to be honest. So I'll get GLFW to handle that for me, and that'll be nice. So yeah, and probably Windows as well. And then I'm definitely going to look at getting DirectX 11 going for Windows for stuff like direct input as well, or X input, and of course Direct 3D 11 as well. Because Direct 3D is much nicer than OpenGL, and to be honest, OpenGL has just been frustrating me a lot lately because it's very difficult to debug, and it's just generally nowhere near as elegant as Direct 3D 11. Anyway, that's that. Hopefully I'll be able to, once this PBR stuff is done, I'll definitely commit it to the GitHub repository, so you guys can definitely check out that code, and hopefully it works on most platforms as well, or most hardware. But yeah, that's what I've been working on. So this is devlog number 3. Hope you guys enjoyed. And I will see you guys. Oh, one more thing. Let's just get everything out of the way here. So apart from checking out GitHub, I almost forgot about this. Apart from checking out GitHub and Trello, you're gonna want to follow me on Twitter as well. There'll be a link in the description. And if you truly enjoy seeing this and you want to see more of this, and I'll definitely start coming out with some actual tutorials on how to do some of these concepts like shadow mapping and PBR and all of this stuff once I get it implemented and working properly. And deferred rendering. Let me quickly show off deferred rendering because I just forgot to do that. I've just done the basics for that. If we go into, what was I doing? If we go into scene, right? No, where is this? This would be in layer 3D. This is currently in here. It won't be for much longer. But if we use the deferred renderer and we have to specify width and height, all I'm doing here is I've basically set up MRTs, right? Multiple render textures, right? I've set up multiple render targets. Sorry, that's what I meant. So you can see we're outputting like the diffuse here, and then the normals here, and then the UVs here and the position here. We don't actually need to output the UVs or the position. We can kind of get them. This is the G buffer, and we can essentially recalculate them later. I'm just outputting them right now because I don't have anything else to output yet. Because again, I haven't kind of finished PBR, and there would be other useful things that we can output, but basically that's kind of where I'm at with deferred rendering, and I will definitely continue working on that. But I want to get the PBR stuff done first, so that at least I have like a proper, forward renderer that will be able to kind of look beautiful, and then from then on, I'll kind of probably move on to stuff like deferred rendering. So anyway. If you do enjoy this stuff and you want to support me, then of course I do have a Patreon account here, so you can pledge a certain amount per month. Again, those Sparky rewards, I'm going to have to start. Maybe I'll give you guys access to like the versioner. Actually, that's a good idea. Maybe I'll give you guys access to that secret versioner repository of Sparky so that you can get like essentially nightly builds. Actually, that's a cool idea that I literally just thought of then. Maybe you guys will get, maybe the people who pledge like $5 or more per month will get access to that version repository with the kind of super secret stuff that is kind of nightly builds, and then GitHub commits will be kind of official, almost releases, where I'll commit stuff that is not necessarily broken. So yeah, that'd be a good idea actually. So go ahead and become a patron. So anyway, thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed. Please hit the like button if you did enjoy this video, and I will see you guys next week with another Sparky devlog. Goodbye.